Welcome to Spirit School. My name is Danielle, also known as the Squamish Medium. I am the host of your Spirit School, where I will share all the lessons and learnings that I have uncovered through my intuitive development and mediumship development journey. I am a professional psychic and medium, an intuitive teacher and mentor, and I look forward to walking alongside you on this journey. Hello everyone and welcome back to Spirit School. I am here with my Mediumship-Bestie, Melissa White Medium. How are you, Melissa?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing.
Good.
Thank you so much for driving all the way up to Squamish for this podcast. I'm so excited to get you here in the flesh because I was trying to figure out your first podcast interview minus my 5-year-old girl who I sat in the closet with while I interviewed her.
Yes, I can relate to that. Yes.
I was like, I usually literally record the podcast in my closet. But you came all the way up. So thank you, because I was trying to figure out how to do a podcast interview online. So here we are. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. What do you do? How do you work your mediumship out for the world? And who are you, Melissa White?
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a big question. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, because this is a huge blessing, to spend this time with you. For me, I think I'm a medium, but I'm also someone who works on a level of trying to empower people in their personal lives, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the work that I would do, maybe people seek me out for mediumship because they do have a need to connect with spirit and their loved ones. But at the end of the day, also, I do find I'm giving tools for people to use in their daily lives to really live their best life to their fullest potential. So sometimes it ends up being more intuitive counseling or soul coaching, but really at the end of the day, it's sort of whatever's needed, so that's how I try to approach it, whatever each client needs. Also teach, so looking at helping people to uncover their own abilities, just like you do. And basically that can be private sessions, group sessions, all over the place, but really just sort of trying to be the best voice for the spirit world as I can.
I love that. And I'm going to skip ahead a couple questions here because I really like how you describe how you do your readings. I'm always trying to describe that too, because I find that the need for mediumship is so much less today than it was even 6 years ago, because we just have this belief through science from spirit and our own experiences that our loved ones make it and that they're okay and that they love us. Mm-hmm. So clients will come in a little bit confused about mediumship versus soul readings versus psychic readings. And I find that the need is typically, what is the soul yearning for? Yes. Like what's down there that needs to come up so you can move forward in your life in a positive and empowered way.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
Well, there's also, I think too, people get sometimes hung up on what kind of reading should I get, and I think I might change things around on my website to just not have such different categories, because really at the end of the day they might think they're coming in for one type of reading, but we'll see when we get there. We'll see what their soul is longing for, what spirit has in store, what their guides might want to express, and whatever's needed. So at the end of the day, they could say, I want this type of reading. They could come in and it might be that there's actually all this other stuff to do with past life reading or soul of the soul level that could come through. So I think it's less about what they think they want or what they think they need, and more so what is the actual need.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's exactly what I say in my readings too. And it's funny you say that, because I just redid my website and I just separated my readings. At first it was a soul reading. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. You show up. Right. But then I found that there would be the occasional 1 out of 10 reading where there was I really just want to hear from my son. Mm-hmm. And so I felt the need to actually just separate mediumship reading and describe clearly, this is mediumship. Yes. The whole intention of this reading is to connect with your departed loved one, bring a photo, bring an object, let's get to work.
I do that too,
Where the soul reading is just just come, be curious, open heart, and we'll just see what happens. Right? Because, in this realm, in working with this energy, you can't predict how a reading's going to turn out. No. As much as how psychic we are, we can't predict it.
Well, that's the thing. And there's nothing, I was saying this earlier too, that there's nothing else like it. What other vocation, what other job do you show up every day and there's literally no preparation that you can actually do? I mean, you can prepare your space, you can prepare yourself energetically, but you will not know until the person's there in your space exactly what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
And even as you're speaking the words, you don't know what is actually going to be said until you say the words.
Exactly.
So it does take a tremendous amount of courage and guts to actually put yourself out there in that way. And I think too, sometimes expectation is huge. The pressure of it can be a lot. The pressure to produce results, and it's the kind of job where within the first 5 minutes, you have to essentially allow there to be enough trust between you and your client, you and your recipient, that they're going to be able to open themselves up fully so that you can do your job. Yeah. So that to me is like a whole, when I look at it, that is a lot of pressure when I actually stop to think about it.
It is.
I think you get used to it, but it is a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I sometimes find that I'm really thinking everybody wants spirit. So I'll start and I'll be bringing through spirit and my client will be looking at me like, yep, that's nice. Yes, that's true. And then something happens where I realize, oh no, that's not why they're here. There's actually something going on in their life, something with their marriage or something going on with their kids that's why they're actually there. Yeah. So I think sometimes we become obsessed with trying to give everybody spirit. We assume everybody needs mediumship when actually it's not true. Not everybody is in need of it.
No, and a lot of people, there's so many different ways with technology and just people like us in every single community now where healing's kind of happening in a beautiful pace, I find too. And so, yeah, that's interesting. And so one other thing I wanted to touch on from what you were just speaking of is, I don't know if you had the same experience, but I don't think I've ever been such a people pleaser as before I started doing my readings because of those expectations.
Yes.
Because I actually didn't feel, I didn't realize how much expectations would be on me to the point where I almost felt sick before some of my readings, especially the early days.
Yes.
I would feel like throwing up. I'm like, oh my God, what if spirit doesn't show up?
Yes.
And what if I don't get it? And it was like me. And then the second you try to take yourself out of it, but that's hard because we are humans.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So have you experienced that? Have you experienced that people pleasing and what have you used to kind of take yourself out of it so you could be a service?
Oh, well, I have experienced that. I would say that I've always been a people pleaser to begin with. And I was very much a perfectionist prior. So those are two huge things that I feel if you need healing from perfectionism or people pleasing, you just should become a professional medium because it'll be literally the only way to cure yourself of it because you cannot be either of them.
Yeah.
And maintain your sanity throughout this journey. So I would say I totally relate to feeling sick before readings. I would get digestive issues before readings. I would also say, and I've found this with different types of mediums, different styles of mediumship, people who are generally extremely empathic, which you are and I am, tend to feel the need of the client so much more. So I would say it's almost kind of like a trade-off because there are some mediums that I would say maybe it's not that they're not empathic, I'm sure they are, but not to the same degree. Right? Yeah. It's just not to the same extent. So for them to go into a reading, it's kind of like, okay, let's see what happens, let's go. And they'll be more focused on spirit than they would be on the needs of the client, which actually I think in some ways is a very good thing. It's a strength. I find that I'm always very aware of what my client's thinking, what they're feeling, what they are waiting for, what they want. If it's not being delivered, I have all of this internal dialogue, which gets me into my mind, into the logical mind, and takes away from the experience. Yeah. So I think you need to find a balance, and that's what I've sort of tried to do over the years. So certainly in the beginning, I was very focused on what the client was feeling, and I was more focused on the living than I was on spirit. That's evolved and changed over time. Still find myself slipping into that sometimes, and I think it depends on the day. It depends if I'm tired, depends if I've been sick, it depends if I've been burned out. If I'm feeling not myself or not at my best, then it's easy to kind of slip into that sort of feeling of am I doing it? Is it good enough? Are they liking this? Are they gonna? And it's not something that's selfish, I want to get it right for my own satisfaction. It's literally I feel like I just want to help them so bad and want to give them whatever they need. But at the end of the day, what Spirit has shared with me is that honestly, it's as much up to them as it is up to us and up to spirit. It's a 3-way conversation.
Yeah.
And it's a team effort. So you can give your all, you can give everything you've got, but if the person is not ready for it, or if they're not in a vibrational match to you in some way, it can't be as, amazing as you would maybe want it to be.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I haven't experienced this in the past couple of years, but definitely early on I had a few teachings from spirit when I had clients sitting there and I could just feel the anticipation on them that blocked me, because they wanted to hear, like, talk about the apple, about the apple, like that's what they're repeating in their mind, and your reading is not real unless you talk about this specific thing.
Right.
And so I'd like to hear from your words, like, what that does to us as a reader and how that can derail a session.
Right. It completely does. And it's such a shame. It's so frustrating, I think, on our part, because we're trying to explain that, no, the way to approach this is you have to be completely open, but then you also have to be able to be active in your responses. You need to be able to participate, right? So you can't just be open and passive. You have to be open and active in the reading.
That's great.
And it's a fine line. We have to do the same. We have to walk, sort of this fine line between, receiving the information, but being relaxed enough to receive it and open enough to receive it, but then in the same way interpret it and then deliver it and keep the energy going. But definitely, if you come in with a preconceived idea that you're going to test your medium, test your psychic, I would say you're probably going to get what you would expect, and it's going to be, I think you could get an okay reading. That's possible, but that's probably the best outcome, is an okay reading.
Yeah.
If you're willing to keep in mind, yes, there's a certain code word that maybe you would love to hear, but it's not the purpose of your reading. If the purpose of an intent is to come and to just see what comes up and what comes through, and to kind of give your trust and give your energy to that person, to that experience, whatever it might be, you know, so kind of be okay with whatever happens.
Yeah. And I find too, I work a lot in my clairsentience, and a lot of the impact of a reading is actually what's not said, is what's felt.
Yes.
And if you're closed off in your mind and you're just constantly in your mind, you're not opening your heart, you're going to miss half the reading, which is that presence of spirit.
Of course.
I have people who are receiving good information and they still break down crying. They're like, I don't know why I'm crying. I'm like, because you feel spirit here.
Right.
Because you're feeling right now in the presence of spirit. And if you come into a reading with these expectations and if they don't say this word, they're not real, then you're going to miss that. And you're wasting your money.
You're wasting your money. You're also wasting your energy, and you're wasting your medium's energy, because it takes a whole lot of energy to work through those blocks, and it's things that I think we both try to prepare people prior. I think educating people on what it is to actually have a mediumship reading, what you can do, to actually prepare yourself and make yourself as open as possible,
So give us a couple steps here for the listeners who all probably go get readings at some point, if not are readers themselves. What steps do you think people need to take to be the best sitter possible for reading?
So ideally, you would be in a sane frame of mind. So you're coming in not frazzled, not having had some kind of busy, hurried, frantic, chaotic, emotional day. So ideally, maybe you've had, you're in a place of peace of mind before you come. So maybe just sitting in your car and taking a few deep breaths and relaxing yourself a bit before you come in. I would say not having a test prepared for your medium that they have to pass or fail. Not looking at it as a result-oriented thing. Looking at it as an experience, and let's just see what happens. Maybe this will be the medium for me, maybe it won't. But let me see what happens. I recommend people actually talk to their loved ones beforehand and just have a conversation. I'm going in for this reading. If you're able to, will you come? And just bring me whatever I need to know. I would say breathing. I think some people come and sit down and they stop breathing. They're there for a reading, but they're just staring blankly. They're not speaking, and they're just do it, amaze me, give me something magical, change my life.
A circus monkey.
Yes, and it doesn't lend itself to the most amazing experience. So I think if they could come and just be open, relax as much as they can, and then give honest feedback. Yes or no, I'm not sure. I think people are scared to speak because they don't want to give away too much. But what they don't realize is when they're not responding, or if they go, yeah, and then it's almost creating this sort of murky, muddy energy. So you have to be willing to say yes or no, or I don't know. And I always tell people, it's fine if it's a no, it's a no. Say no.
Yeah.
And recognize that it doesn't mean it's not your loved one just because there's a no.
Yeah.
It means that, okay, I gotta go back to spirit, let me reinterpret this feeling or this image or what I've perceived, and I'll offer it to you again. And if you still don't get it, that's fine. We'll move on. But don't let one piece of information that isn't exactly precisely correct make you think that this is not legit or this is not your person. You know, because literally it's like, it's not an exact science. It's something that we're endeavoring the miraculous each time we sit to do it. So there has to be some room for misinterpretation now and again.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like the whole thing. Obviously, if it's no, you're not connecting. But if it's yes, maybe, yes, no, don't freak out about one no.
Yeah.
You know, so I think just keeping an open mind and open heart, that's the main thing.
Yeah. So what do you say? I'm curious, just as your friend and as a fellow
Yeah.
medium, because when I get a no and I feel like, okay, so I'm going to go back to spirit, but usually one of the things I say to clients is like, okay, just keep it with you.
Yes.
Just in case. Makes sense later, because that sometimes happens too.
It happens a lot, yeah.
So what do you say to a client in that moment? Because I'm just thinking about the vibrational dip. Because before, when I was first studying to be a medium, if I heard a no, it would crumble me out of my vibration.
Yes.
To the point I couldn't get back up.
Yes.
So then now as a professional, I've realized I can just say that and keep my vibrations high. What do you say?
I say the same thing,
Okay,
you know,
cool.
or I'll be honest. I'll just say, I'm not even sure what that is about. That's interesting. But I stay curious, you know, as to, okay, not sure about that. Let's carry on, you know. But I think it's just recognizing that the no as the medium can be extremely deflating and disappointing. And you could think, how could I be so bang on with all of this other information and then get this weird piece that doesn't make sense?
Yeah.
Over time and experience, I've realized there's two things that could be happening there. One of them, sometimes it's a change in communicator. You get yes, and then you get this image or you get this different kind of information and it doesn't make sense. And for me anyway, I'm not sure if it's for everyone, but for me, sometimes that can be a second communicator coming in and offering me this different information. So I always am aware of that now, that can be the case. The other part of it is you're getting all this information. I think spirit likes to give us these, what do they call it in like movies when there's those little hidden gems, like it's like an Easter egg or something? I don't know, they call it that in video games too, I think, where it's like something to be revealed later or something to find out later.
Yeah.
I think that's what spirit does to us. And it's like, sometimes, I mean, I've had clients where it's people in their family lineage that they didn't even know, like a Caucasian lady, you know, who was coming for a reading, and I was telling her about this like Asian man that I felt was in her family, and I felt ridiculous saying it because I'm like, I don't know how this actually is ever going to make sense to you, really. But I was saying, and I kept repeating, you know, the information I got, and anyways, I said, okay, I know it sounds crazy. Could you just keep it in mind? Just think, you know, remember I've said it, and we'll see. And I don't know how long, I think it might have been 6 months, 8 months later, she emailed me and said she did her DNA or Ancestry.com or whatever, and she found this person, and it was like her dad that she thought was her dad wasn't her dad or something. There was like some kind of thing where, yes, that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, after you get a few of those over the years, you start to recognize that maybe sometimes we're not meant to know, but we deliver it anyway. And there's this extra validation or proof that the person gets down the road that just validates it even further. But you have to have the guts and the courage to speak it.
Yeah,
in the first place.
That's what kept me. That is exactly what kept me from going professional for so many years. Was that courage to, because I, you know, it's interesting. Kind of going back a little bit. I want to know how you decided to go professional when you decided, because I'm sure that there's people listening who will definitely resonate with your story, and people who will kind of feel into mine. Mine was interesting because it was fear and it was lack of courage to actually speak up what I'm getting, and trying to play it safe that kept me from going, I'm going to use in air quotes the word professional, but really hanging out my shingle for 4 years. I mean, I didn't do it for 4 years, and I did talk to myself about wanting to do that slow and steady path to make sure I was perfect or was good enough to get out there and do this. And I did realize, much like you said earlier, that just kind of starting to say things and being courageous and saying them and getting validations made it stronger. But it took me 4 years, right? And it was a bit of a painful journey for me that I try to save my students with now. Because the truth is, as a Virgo and as somebody who's typically hard on themselves, I'm probably never going to meet my own expectations. Right? But the people pleasing would make me sick. And so I'm curious about you going back to your journey. Like, we both found out we were mediums after the birth of our daughters, right? Was it daughter or your son?
My daughter.
Your daughter, right? So I found that to be super fascinating. And then, like, I knew of you really early on in my mediumship because I heard your name everywhere. And then we finally got to meet and, like, fell in love. We totally fell in love, like mediumship besties. But I always admired your path because I was like, wow, she's so brave. Like, she's so courageous. And so I want to know about your early thoughts between when you had your daughter, when you started developing, and when you decided to go professional.
Okay, well, I think my path is a little bit rare. I don't know anyone else that has the same kind of thing that happened. And I think it's only because in this lifetime, mediumship as a profession came up when I needed it. I just needed it. That needed to happen. So my son is 15. When I had my son, I had a near-death experience after he was born, like a week after. So that, I would say, opened me up. That trauma opened me up to a new way of seeing things, but I certainly didn't know I was a medium. That wasn't part of it. I had an experience with spirit and everything, but I didn't think, oh, I'm a medium now, right? Then 7 years later, I had my daughter. Within 6 weeks of her birth, then my husband at the time had a serious car accident, injured to the point where he was like the main breadwinner, and he went to being off work for years. So we were all of a sudden in a place where we thought we were going to lose our house. We had a huge flood in our house and had to move out for a couple months and live with family members. There was depression that I was seeing in my husband at that time. There was difficulties with, I think, some PTSD and a lot of heavy emotional things going on within my environment, plus this newborn baby, plus I was also having extreme anxiety from everything in the situation, plus I think just a major shift in my life. So it was that point I felt probably the lowest in my life, where everything was crumbling. Everything that I thought was solid and real was actually like uncertain. So I had no real stability at that time. So I started going to meditation. I thought it was a meditation class. I didn't know it was like a psychic development circle, really. So I showed up and I just wanted to learn how to lessen my anxiety. Like, I just wanted to learn how to cope with daily panic, and just sort of this terror that I felt, because I am an overthinker. I am someone who analyzes everything, and I just felt very disconnected. I think I didn't realize how disconnected I felt from everything. I think I was in a place of being numb, because my relationship was falling apart. There was a lot of stress. And my daughter was not, I would say, like the easiest baby. So there was like a matter of maybe I think now looking back, I probably did have postpartum depression. I know I had postpartum anxiety for sure. So anyways, it was a mess. So I showed up, I do this meditation, first time I ever meditated in my life, in this group. And it brought me to tears. I was touched, and I realized now it was like the first time I ever really felt spirit. I ever really felt maybe that connected to my own soul. And I thought, oh, like these people do this every week. Like, this is amazing. Like, I need to get more. So I literally started going every week. I would not miss, even if I was deathly ill. I felt like I had to be there because it was helping me. I could connect with myself, connect with spirit. I was seeing things. I was experiencing spirit right away. Like, I was seeing images, the clairvoyance. I was having the clairsentience experience, and shortly after, the clairaudience. So it was like waiting for me. It was just something that I hadn't recognized that was there. So I would go week after week. And then after about 8 months of going, and then I was at home meditating on my own, reading my angel cards, like taking as much in as I could, reading a million books, finding information wherever I could. It was after about 10 months, people in the class who'd been actually going for quite some time to that circle were like, could you read my, like, mom? Because, like, she really needs a reading. And I would say, okay. So I would, like, read for them just, like, for fun, you know, thinking, like, oh, let's see what happens. And I had no idea if it would pan out, if it would be successful, but I just thought, okay, I'll do it. And then after a while, those people would tell other people, and then it just became my work. Like, it wasn't like I was like, okay, now I'm going to do it professionally. It was sort of like, well, read for these people, they told someone else, that person told someone else, and it was almost like the spirit world was like orchestrating it to provide me with the confidence that I could do it, but also an income. Yeah. Because literally at that time, we were living on my maternity leave, which was 60% of not a lot of money. I used to be work in a infant toddler daycare. Oh yeah, so, no money. So there's not, you know, it's not like it's like a high paying job to begin with. Hard work.
Still isn't.
No, it's a hard work, but it wasn't paid well. So that was like 60% of that wage, which was nothing. And that's what we were trying to live on with 2 kids and a mortgage. So basically, I feel it was not just spirit, you know, saving my butt, which I feel like they've done many times, but it was also in their interest because they're saying, okay, if we want her to do this work, you know, she's willing to, you know, she's one of the people that's willing to put herself out there. Let's use her, but we have to give her some kind of income. She's not going to be able to do this for free. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So literally, I think that's what happened. And so I don't know, I just felt moved to do it. The feeling that I got when I gave a reading was like nothing else. I mean, it felt intoxicating. It felt amazing to be able to be of service and to feel spirit so strongly while I was doing it. Yeah. You know, so I thought, oh wow, like if I can do this, as long as there's people that are wanting it, I'm gonna do it. Yeah. And just see. I had no clue. I had no idea it was gonna be my full-time job. I had no idea I was gonna end up it being like such an integral part of like my life and who I am. Yeah. So I just kind of went with it.
That's awesome. I love hearing that because there's so much I want to say based off of what you said. We're going to, after this, remind me if I forget, but I want to talk about setting prices in our practice because I know there's a lot of controversy around like charging for these services with the old spiritualist mindsets, right? And I know that you've had some spiritualist mentorship in the past, as have I. But my first experience was also within a spiritual development class, and I remember, like, I didn't think I was a medium. I'd been told I was a medium almost my whole life, but I was like, no, there's no way. Right. And I connected with this woman's son, and I got his name. I mean, I get names sort of now, but not all the time. And she, like, clung to me. She, like, gasped, and she was like, like, I connected with him, and I got so scared in that moment because I realized the responsibility and the weight of mediumship on people's hearts and their grieving process. And that, I think, experience for me did the opposite effect, like where instead of going, oh, this is my full-time thing, I was like, oh my God, I'm terrified right now. Yeah. And I got really scared to the point where I was like, yeah, I need to figure out what I'm doing. And I think that's what scared me along the way. And she was sweet as heck, but she used to always bring me gifts. She used to call me all the time. Right. And it was a lot of pressure on me. It is. And I think that experience kind of made me go the opposite way, shy away, whereas like, I'm going to stand under a rock for a few years, try to figure out what this is and how it works. Yeah. And then hopefully be prepared for, you know, the poor mom who lost her child and be able to comfort her in a way. So I always admire, you know, people like you who are just like, yeah, let's do this. And I feel this calling so deep. And so thank you for sharing that part of your story. So I wanted to talk to you today, and I knew that this was going to come up at some point because I know this is something we both have encountered and struggled with through our entire professional experience, but how to set a price, because I used to be $20 for a reading for 20 minutes, and then now I'm $150, right? And it's almost like I just want to give people what it's like on this end, coming up with a value for this, because we feel so lucky to be able to do this service. But we also understand that we need to live, and development is not cheap.
it's very expensive.
Yeah.
And I think that it's the hardest thing, because it's like mediumship or psychic work or soul work, intuitive development. It's all coming from the soul. And the thing is, I find the people who are really wanting to be of service and wanting to give sometimes have the hardest time asking to be paid. You know, and I still find I struggle with it, because to be honest, if I could do this for free, I certainly would.
Yeah.
And I do it often. You know, there's lots of times where I'll be moved in a reading and I'm like, for whatever reason, I'll feel, no, I'm not actually going to charge you. This is a gift to you today, for whatever reason. But I also am human, and I have bills to pay, and I have kids, and I have a life, and I've often thought, well, I could do a normal job again, you know, go back to that 9 to 5. But I know that I could serve a fraction of the people that I'm serving now, spiritually, and I would probably not have the energy I need. I barely have the energy I need now. So I can't imagine working a normal job 9 to 5 and then trying to do this like you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult. You don't have that much extra to give, you know, if you've got all this other stuff going on. So for me, I almost feel like it's a trade-off. Like, I don't ever want it to be something that only people can afford if they have a certain amount of money. You know, I don't want it to be that. However, I also can't undervalue what I'm doing, because it's taken years of blood, sweat, and tears. It's taken experience. It's taken my own, you know, I've taken lots of classes, lots of mentorship with amazing teachers. I've traveled to England, Arthur Findlay College. I've done that. I've been to Ireland to teach. I've been all over the place for this work. And it's not free.
No, but don't you find, like, when it comes time, because I've been telling you for a while now, I'm like, girl, you gotta jack up your prices.
Right.
I'm like, and you know, every time I reach that point, because I can feel burnout setting on, right? I can feel that, like, you know what, like, I'm starting to feel sick. I'm starting to suffer in my relationships with my family. Like, I can feel that burnout coming on. And so it's just like this energy exchange. But I also feel that, and I know that either means I have to work less or charge a bit more, right, to bring that back up to a fair exchange just for energy purposes. But also, every time I even increase it $25, I, like, lose sleep. Like, do you experience that?
Oh, it's very difficult. Every time I've done it, you know, I've only done it a few times over the years, but every time I do it, I'm afraid that it's going to appear greedy, or that it's going to appear like all this is about is money, when actually it's like the last thing it's about. And I think that's what's difficult for us, you know, as light workers, as, you know, people that want to serve. We struggle with being holy and then being human at the same time. And, you know, I think that in some ways, you know, the only thing that I've been able to come up with that can kind of ease my mind about this, because I've been in a situation, like, when my daughter was born, and like I was telling you about, like, financially, that was, like, very tough. We did not know if we're going to have to go to the food bank. Like, we did not know if we're going to be able to, like, pay our bills. And I never want someone who's in need that could use my service to not be able to come. And I certainly had a reading, or I remember I was wanting to do a past life regression and hypnosis at work, you know, at the time of my beginning of my development. And the lady that was providing it for me knew my situation. I told her, like, I'd love to do it, but I just can't afford it right now. And she totally worked with me. I did it, like, gave her $25 each time, you know, or every month or something. And it took me however long to pay it off, but I did. And I always think back to that and think, wow, like, that was sort of like an amazing thing that she did, because she enabled me to be able to get that at that point that I needed it, right? But I also, on the other hand, think too, you know, there has to be also, you know, I think it depends on the situation, because you'll also get people that will spend hundreds of dollars, say, on an iPhone or on whatever. I mean, you know, whatever material thing that, you know, that they feel they want to get. but then they'll balk at like paying, you know, $150 for a reading. And I'm like, well, I guess it all comes down to also what you value.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and the funny thing is like I have clients who've seen me from the very beginning, who used to pay $20 and now pay like $150, and I've never heard anyone complain.
Yeah.
I've never heard a peep. But as a light worker and as a service provider, it's like, it's obviously an inside job.
Yeah.
Like, why we struggle with this so much.
Well, I think, there's a few reasons. I think that we probably have, in my opinion, past life experiences where I think in the olden days, you know, the seers and the mystics and the healers were taken care of by the community. I think that people provided. You were given food. You were given stuff that you needed to live. In this day and age, no one is going to take care of you.
Yeah.
You know, like we have to take care of ourselves. And so that's the difference, right?
Yeah.
But we still feel, because we've taken vows in previous lifetimes, religious vows, all kinds of things. And I do think it has an effect on our guilt in this life about receiving any kind of material gain.
Yeah.
But I also, the only thing that's eased my mind and eased my sort of fears around this is to say, and something I'm thinking of starting, well, I think I will start a day a month or something where it's like, pay what you can.
Yeah.
And then at least I know that I'm opening up the opportunity for people who maybe can't make it work.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I never tell people how I do this more compassion work, or the situation, because I don't want people to take advantage of it. But I do a certain amount of compassion readings a month based off of just kind of what people email me. There's usually children involved of some kind. And so I definitely do some of that too. And I know that you're super generous with your offerings. But I just wanted to bring this up because I know that there's a lot of people who listen to my podcast who are studying light workers and want to put themselves out there, but there is a lot of garbage out there around, like, you can't charge for this stuff. This is a gift from, you know, and
of course,
we're coming out of that mindset, and I definitely feel that, but I don't want people, you know, when you look at energy exchange, and money is just an energy exchange, you know, and you have a gift to offer the world and you want to like even consider making a living like this, like just go start it, do it by donation, like start small and do referral program, like whatever you want to just kind of get started.
Whatever you're comfortable with. You have to be, you know, you only have to answer to yourself and God. I say God, but whatever your belief is. But
I said that in my last podcast. I'm like, people, I'm not going to apologize about using God.
Exactly. Like I find I'm so, you know, because I'm aware I've always wanted to try and be so sensitive of everyone's belief, but that is mine, you know. But it's between you and God and you and yourself. So as long as you're good with it and you know who you are and you know what you're doing and what your intention is, I think you're good. Yeah. But the guilt of it is crazy. I mean, we don't make therapists feel bad for receiving money. We don't make doctors feel bad for making a living. Yeah. They have. I mean, you could argue that what they're able to do is they're definitely gifted from God, you know, to have those abilities. Absolutely. You know, there's all kinds of jobs that require the same amount of kind of expertise and you know intuition actually, you know. But we don't have a problem with them making money and making a living. Yeah. They're not expected to do it for free. Yeah. Right?
No, that's very true. Okay, cool. So I have one more get real, let's get real topic I want to talk about, and then we'll get into the fun stuff because I got some questions through Instagram and just some lighter stuff. But I wanted to talk to you about spiritual burnout because this is something that nobody talks about, really. Mm-hmm. You hear people talk about it, but you know, not really, to be honest with you. And even through the teachers that I've had in the past, I haven't seen people talk about it. I've seen people experience it. But from an outsider looking in, you don't really know what's going on. Now, I personally have experienced spiritual burnout, compassion fatigue, whatever you want to call it, twice. And I'm only part-time. Right. But I've seen it affect my health, the way I eat, like running to fast food just to like ground myself and numb myself, losing sleep, flu-like symptoms. Like this is, you know, and I feel really emotional when I talk about it because I don't think people understand this completely. And you may experience it in different types of professions as well. But when we use our nervous system, when we use our whole bodies, it affects us in a way. And I remember Tony Stockwell saying this at the retreat, I think it was, that we both went to. And he said, you know, sometimes mediums are some of the unhealthiest people. Yes. Because of what we put out and how much energy we give out. So, you know, every time that I experience spiritual burnout, like I have to take a break. Like I'll take months off. I don't know if you have that ability because you're full-time mama, right?
I don't have the ability to take months off, which creates another kind of pressure. So, but what I've learned, because I have taken time off recently, I gave myself, my fiance gave me the gift of going away for a week, away from everything, in Palm Springs, lovely, beautiful time away. And what it showed me is that I actually need, it's not even just like, oh, that would be nice. I need to give myself time and a mental and emotional break from other people's pain, from other people's expectations and demands on my energy.
Exactly.
And so I didn't realize how bad I needed it until I was away.
So how does it manifest for you?
Okay. Well, it manifests in sometimes me feeling extremely spacey, forgetful, losing my keys, losing, like, not too long ago I was in a space of feeling in this midst of this burnout, and I misplaced an envelope full of like $300 cash. Like, just, you know, like, just like feeling almost like flustered, you know, like I can't catch up ever. Lack of sleep, you know, so definitely like insomnia at times, or feeling like I could sleep all day, you know, so needing to nap and needing to just like do absolutely nothing. It can manifest in feeling overly emotional and also overwhelmed. I get super overwhelmed when I know that I'm taking on too much and that I'm not taking care of myself. It does feel like the spiritual flu. I talk about like emotional hangover, you know, where I feel like if I do a bunch of intense readings or just quantity, just too many in a row, without a day off, which I've done many times over the years.
When you were moving?
Oh, like, yeah, I've moved so many times that it's like I took one day off to actually move.
The day before, you're like, I have readings. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, like, I don't recommend any of these things that I do, to be honest. I would say just use it as a cautionary tale. Because I also, in the beginning, same thing, was turning towards, like, fast food all the time. And it was, like, just because practicality, I was on the move, I was always constantly one group to another, so I would just like stop, go through the drive-thru, eat, drive, try to ground myself and get ready for the next one. And that's probably the worst thing you could do for yourself, but I do feel like it's like you sort of get into this fight or flight, you get into survival mode, and I think you need to be in your nervous system in that way in order to produce the readings and to be in that energy. But then people don't recognize you also have to come down to earth and you still have to be human.
Your mom.
So you're living, you're living in two worlds all the time. And I was just talking about another friend of mine who's a medium earlier today, and she was saying, don't you find it hard to switch back and forth? So say like I do a couple readings and then I've got a couple hours to do my like Cuban stuff and like driving my kids around, doing whatever, coming back home, cleaning up, and then go back to do another reading. It's very difficult energetically to go in between those two worlds.
Absolutely.
And so but the burnout also can be to do with just physically feeling like so exhausted that like your body's in pain. And then emotionally, sometimes I think I can start to get a bit numb. I can start to almost not enjoy the things. It's a bit of a depression, I think, that sets in for me when I know that I'm burnt out. So I can start to actually not really find enjoyment in the things I once did, not really feel like doing anything, even though, like, say I might have an afternoon off, it's like I literally don't care. Like, I literally don't feel like I want to do anything. And that's a scare. There's a few times where it scared me because I thought, this isn't me. Like, this isn't who I am. Like, I love life.
Or why I do this.
No. And it's like, I don't think you have to sacrifice your mental health in order to do this work. But it's certainly something that it's a work in progress. I wouldn't say that I have any of it mastered as far as like how to do both successfully.
And, one thing I did, because I hit burnout last year really bad. Like I was hospitalized and I was having heart palpitations and my nervous system was shot. Like I couldn't actually even do readings for a while. And that really kind of changed me. I ended up setting up these boundaries. I know it probably won't work for you, but because I'm only doing this part-time and I work part-time in my corporate job, but I only do readings on weekdays now during school hours for my kids.
Yeah.
And I teach on weekends.
Right.
And I know you're so popular and like you have so many bookings, and so you work a lot. Like you work in the evenings and weekends
And daytime.
And phone and in person and so one of my favorite structures I've seen, I think I told you this before, but one of my favorite coaches who's in Vancouver, he does a schedule full time where he works for 3 weeks and takes the last week off every month as his integration week.
Yeah.
And it just looks like it serves really well. So I don't know.
I think that's
just advice out there to the world.
It's a great idea. And I think that one thing I've noticed too is that anytime I've thought, no, I can't take time off because I need the income.
Yeah.
As well, the other part of it, not just that I need the income, I've also got people that have waited, 4 months, 5 months to get this reading. At the last minute, for me to say, I'm burnt out, I don't think necessarily people are going to understand that.
Yes.
It's a hard thing to understand, but it's not like a job, like if you're burnt out, but you're working in, say, I don't know, a data entry position.
Yeah.
It's going to suck to go to work when you're burnt out and you're having like a breakdown. However, you could probably go and fake it till you make it. You could probably go and get it done.
Yeah.
You might not enjoy it. It might be difficult. You might have to go and like cry in the bathroom, but you could do it.
Yeah.
This, I don't think you can do under that duress. I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
And even if it was, it's not going to be to the level that you need it to be or that you want it to be for yourself, for your own standards, and also for what your client needs, right?
Yeah.
So there has to be, I think, the whole key to this is prevention, probably, rather than, trying to do what I'm doing now to make up.
But you've made shifts.
I have. I certainly have. And they've been small, but I think they've been pretty big for me.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that even the times I thought I can't because this person is expecting this of me, I'm going to let them down, or I can't because I need that income. Once I say no, and I do put that limit, Spirit, God, whatever you want to say, somehow provides in another way.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
it's like, and I also think, I never want to let somebody down who's been waiting for this, but I also think if I say to them, I'd prefer to be 100% for you and give you what you deserve than to half-ass this.
Exactly.
And I don't think we should ever half-ass anything in this realm. But, there's going to be times where as a human, you are squeezed.
Yeah.
It's like there's pressure. There's all kinds of things going on. So we can't expect perfection from ourselves ever. We can only show up and do our best in any given situation. But I think there's a difference between, it's not my best day, but I know I can do this, then, okay, I'm literally having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just finding that, finding that sort of truth for yourself. But I do notice, like, when I do put the boundary, Spirit will make it happen. I'm always okay.
Yeah, definitely. And one other change I made in my business on this topic, and then I have a couple lightning questions for you. But I used to book like 6 to 18 months out, and that was so much pressure for me. Just, again, having 2 young kids, I have kids that are 2 and 5. I don't know what life's going to be like in 18 months. Like, I don't know if it's going to be flu season and they catch sick, and then I feel guilty about canceling. So I actually just structured, after I got well, after last year, that I'm only opening up 2 months of appointments at a time. Yeah. And I'm just trusting Spirit will align whoever goes there.
They will. They always do.
And that's helped me so much because right now I'm kind of feeling like I want a bit of time off, and I'm booked until the end of August, so I'm not going to commit to anything in September until I feel how I feel at the end of August, right?
It's wise to do that. And I think it's easy to get in this, it's almost like you get on the train and it just keeps going. Yeah. I looked at my schedule. I'm like, oh, okay. So I opened up dates till the end of December.
Yeah, I saw that the other day.
Which is good to have that, in place, and people, so people, because there was demand for it, so I did it. But in future, I don't think I'll be opening too much more. 2-3 months maybe, but more than that, I think it's too much pressure.
Because don't you find, like, I love the teaching. Like, I love the circles. Yes. I love the mentorship. And it's kind of like, and this is how come I feel like mediumship might be changing. And we talked about this a little bit earlier before we started the podcast, but it's like, I see now that's more common with some mediums, like even James Van Prague. He hasn't done readings in years. He just has his school.
Yeah.
There's so much joy in sharing everything you know.
Yes.
To be honest with you, here's all the secrets.
Yes.
Like, go do this. More people need to be doing this. So, do you love the teaching?
I would say it's my favorite if I
too.
had to choose. And it's not to say I don't like readings. I do enjoy them a lot, and there's reward in that for sure. But with the teaching, like when I was a kid, I used to want to be a teacher or a psychologist or a translator, like a language translator. And now,
I was like, what?
And now I feel like I'm doing all three, right?
Yeah, true.
But with the teaching, I love it because I can see that it's empowering that person to then go and create something of their own, so sort of like helping them to sort of see that they could do it, see that they got it, and then go like forward and give it to other people. Yeah. My vision, I don't know if you feel the same way, but I think that there's going to be a time when there is no need for mediumship because we're all going to know.
Yes.
And we're all going to be communicating telepathically, and we're all going to be sort of like healers. It's probably a long way off. I don't want to limit that, but I do think we have a long way to go to get there. But really, I think a medium, a psychic, a healer, a teacher, an intuitive, all of these things that we do essentially is to raise consciousness, raise the vibration of this earth. And then eventually, once we're all enlightened and we all get it, then we can kind of, then that's when that sort of we reach what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
So I think that in the teaching, it's kind of the most amazing thing that we can do because it's enabling other people then to go on and go forward and carry that message.
Yes, absolutely. And, one of the prediction I want to make along this field is I think that what we do will be covered by extended health benefit plans sooner or later too.
It should be.
Absolutely. And I do think it will be. There are things like even looking back in the day, like naturopathy, like what?
Yeah.
Like I do think that what we provide will eventually be seen as part of the mental health and wellness in big ways. So, okay, perfect. So I just want to honor your time. Because I know you came a long way to come see me and you got to work tonight.
Yes, I do.
You got some good readings to do. So I want to talk to you about so many things. So I hope you want to come back.
Okay, yes.
And I told people on Instagram, but this whole podcast idea was eventually something we wanted to do together. And you're busy, I'm busy. We just couldn't nail down a time.
Right.
So I hope that maybe you'll come monthly, you'll come whenever you're free because I want to have angel conversations with you, guide conversations with you, more real conversations like this.
Yeah.
But for the time being, to wrap this up, I'm going to just read the couple Instagram questions that we got. So I'm going to summarize this one because it's quite long.
Okay.
But they ask, so how have we found maintaining our friendship, spiritual besties, and what have been the challenges to the special bond that we have?
Okay. Well, I would say that finding a spiritual friendship that is sincere and supportive is something that I think Spirit literally puts in front of us when we need it at the right time, and it arranges circumstances so that it'll happen, right? I think for us, the thing that's worked and the reason why we have that connection is because we're both very honest people and we've both been very legit, open with each other.
Yeah.
So I've never felt like, oh, I can't tell her that. What will she think of me?
We're not trying to out-spiritual each other.
No, and that's another huge part of it is that neither one of us are trying to outshine the other. Yeah. It's like, oh, wow, here, she's like me. She's trying to do the same thing. Let's support each other, help each other. Yeah. And I would say maybe that's not as common, as we might like it to be.
It's not at all.
It's not.
We'll have a whole podcast episode just on that.
It's just not. So I think when you find that in someone else, it's very exciting. It's like, oh, okay, I can just be real. I can just tell this person, what I actually think and what I actually feel, right? Yeah. And I think the only challenge is just day-to-day life, commitments with time, distance between, that we don't live right next door. Yeah. But I would say that when it's a spiritual friendship and a spiritual bond, a connection, there's something of an understanding that I can message you at whatever time. Like, I got a concussion in Squamish not too long ago, and I was just like to my partner, like, just text Danielle, tell her to come. You know, and there's just an understanding that, you know, we're there for each other.
Yeah.
So I think,
and I was there within like 5 minutes.
Yes, you were. And we were talking about that on the way over, and because that was one of the last times that I was here, and how, you know, it's just like, I think the understanding of like having each other's back. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I think so too. And, you know, I was saying to Melissa before we hopped on, I said, you know, Melissa, like, I feel so close to you. Mm-hmm. And I think we've actually only like been in each other's physical presence like a handful of times.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, we obviously, you know, in Western Canada, we know of like all the other mediums, and we usually go to the same retreats and workshops, collaborate on different projects, which I hope that we'll end up doing more of.
Yes.
And I just always connected with your energy. You were so kind, you were so generous, you were so sweet. Aww. And that hadn't been what I fully encountered in my experiences with some other mediums. And so I felt safe. I was at a point in my mediumship where I was considering giving it up.
Right.
I was like, what am I putting myself through? Like sickness, insecurity, all this weird stuff. And I reached out to you from only having met you like twice.
Right.
And you were so gracious about giving me your Me Too experience.
Right.
Like, I've experienced that too. And that's exactly what I needed in that moment. I didn't need somebody giving me their advice. I didn't need somebody trying to teach me. I just needed somebody to say, no, I experienced that too. Yeah. Because I'd never experienced that vulnerability with any of my teachers before.
Right.
And I needed it.
Yeah.
So that's what I felt connected to you. And again, my barrier or challenge of the bond, though I don't think it's even a challenge, but, you know, I'm in Squamish, you're further away, I won't give people your address or anything, but, and then my kids are so young, right, they're 2 and 5, I'm still in my baby fatigue phase, and so that's kind of my barrier, but we make it work, people. We're on WhatsApp. You got me on WhatsApp.
Yes, I mean, it works. And I think that, you know, it's different phases in life for both of us. Yeah. But I felt the same with you. I think it was always connected with your energy. And I felt like, oh, here's someone who's so sincere in her. It was like a pureness of like, why you're doing this. And I can feel it instantly with people, you know. And it's not to sound judgmental, you know, it's not like I'm sitting there going, she's doing it for the right reason, she's not. It's not that. Yeah. But it's just, you can feel when someone has that same kind of like, it's like a part of who you are, right? Yeah. And so also just like, I just think like you're like, I think you're so funny, and I think you've got so much wisdom. So I kind of think that we just have that sort of like our energy blends really well together.
And we both love trashy TV.
Yeah. Well, I love, you know, that's what I think is like so cool, because lots of spiritual people like to pretend that all they do is meditate and all they do is say lovely angelic things to everyone in their life, and that they never get mad and that they're never grouchy, and all they eat is like kale and whatever. And I'm just like all about like, well, let's just be real. Like, there has to be a human aspect of ourselves. So yes, I like my Real Housewives. All my podcasts are Real Housewives recaps, like Bravo recap, or true crime. Those are like my two. And there's maybe a few spiritual things in there, but for the most part, like, yeah, I think it's important to be able to bond over human things too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I really appreciate that. And then too, you know, you're so generous, and I mean, so am I. I'm so generous, but you know, we're not in competition with each other. And I don't get close to other mediums very much because I'm kind of out on an island here in Squamish.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of like around where like a lot of mediums are. And I don't know if it's competitive. We can talk about that on a different episode, but I was so refreshed meeting you. It was just so nice. Okay, so last question we got on the Instagram, I feel like I'm like 60 right now, on the Instagram is, what is a daily practice that you recommend to continue to hone my intuition? Not me, but I know, but the question from the reader. Yeah,
so there's many things that I could recommend. I would say from my own personal experience, what works for me has been prayer. I honestly feel like giving myself time every single day to connect with God. That's what actually works. And I find when I fall away from it, I certainly notice the difference. Yeah. I would say if it's someone that's looking to start or to maintain a little bit of a spiritual practice for themselves to really get to the intuitive, definitely meditate, sit in the power, spend time allowing yourself to have like a sense of spirit being close to you, you know, fill yourself up. So do things that will be sort of giving to yourself. So spend time in nature. I would say quiet. Give yourself some time to just be quiet and still your mind, not reaching and asking and looking for like predictions and answers and I need to like get this proof of whatever.
Yeah.
Literally just developing a relationship, a friendship with spirit.
Yeah.
You know, so that they're part of your day-to-day life and, you know, that you're also giving to them what does spirit need of you.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I love that. And I think you just said some things that I was going to speak to as well, is where, you know, when, of course, meditation is going to help you. I think meditation serves a few different purposes where you get used to your own energy body. You get used to how your sensations feel so that when you feel spirits, because it's quite subtle, you can discern that difference. And I have found just recently, actually, so it's funny that you say this, that there's so much more power to sitting in silence than background music or guided meditation. Light and day difference. And when I first started my development journey and I was on a regular meditation practice and I'm not anymore, I used to actually have no seek weeks. So I wouldn't seek for anything. I literally wouldn't seek for connection. I wouldn't seek for visions. I wouldn't seek for anything. I just would sit. So I would call them no seek weeks. Because I did find I was losing a bit of potency there because I was just like, I had all these expectations.
Of course.
And then that's my other piece of advice for people's lose all your expectations. Surrender. Have peace, have fun.
I would say have fun and give yourself opportunities to use your intuition. I think you can read all you want, like books. You can go on the internet, which I don't really recommend because I think there's a lot of garbage that you could find on the internet, but there's probably some great stuff too. But I would say you have to use it in order to sharpen it. You have to use it in order to develop it. You have to get a whole bunch of things wrong before you can know
I say that exact thing. Melissa, you're freaking me out because I say that exact thing. I'm like, you don't know what right feels like until you know what wrong feels like.
And you have to experience the wrong.
Crazy.
You have to. So I celebrate in my classes, especially with mediumship, because it like freaks people out to be wrong, right? And I'll say, I will clap for you. I will like celebrate you when you get it wrong.
I love that.
When you get a no, I will be happy because it means that there's a new reference being created for you. It means that you're opening a pathway in your mind, you're understanding something, and you're learning. Right? So I think join a circle, do a workshop, use it, but don't be afraid to be wrong. Like just go and experience it. And I would say mediumship and intuitive development is like life. You know what I mean? It depends how you want to approach it. If you're going to approach it with all this expectation and you're going to be negative, you're likely that's going to be your experience, right? If you approach it with an open heart and you're curious and you want to go on an adventure, that's likely what you're going to experience.
I love it. That is so amazing. Okay, perfect. So we're going to end it here, but I just want you to close out this episode and just tell us how we can find you.
Oh, okay. You can find me on Facebook. That seems to be a good way for people to find me. If you search Psychic Medium Melissa White, my page is there. My website is MelissaWhiteSacredSoul.com, which is, I really want to change it because I feel it's too long and nobody's going to remember it. So you can do that. I am on Instagram. I don't even know what my handle is. I don't even really know.
I tagged you yesterday.
Did you? I don't know how to use Instagram. So I'm sorry.
I said, I'm like, you got to follow Melissa on Facebook.
It's so, like, I need help. So maybe you can guide me, but that's another way.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And I'll add all this into the show notes.
Wonderful.
Right? So, because there's a million ways to spell Melissa now.
That's right.
Yay. Well, thank you for being here, my friends.
Thank you very much. It was such a huge blessing and honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with me and Melissa today. And I would love to ask that if you can just take a moment to leave a review, write a review, and rate this podcast on whatever platform you are listening on. I would really appreciate it so that more people can find this podcast. And if you like this episode, please do share it with your friends. And if you do share it, please tag me at Squamish Medium on Instagram and use the hashtag Spirit School. Have a good day, guys.